All right, now that ugly's gone. We'll just start out with, what does equilibrium mean? Just spout out one response for now. We'll get to all three. So,
No motion.
Acceleration is equal to 0.
that is correct. That is not.
Velocity is constant.
That is the second one.
What with friction?
Longer.
Right? Is it what with friction?
Not that
No,
specific.
okay.
Acceleration is 0 and velocity is constant. Those are two of them. The other one deals with current stuff that we're doing.
Torque.
Torque,
Force.
force. What about it?
Force.
Total force. Yes, that's the third one. Now, total force being 0 is not part of the first test, but the fact that velocity is constant and acceleration is 0 are two key hallmarks there.
If possible, could you explain adding up the sum of vectors?
Adding vectors.
Yeah.
Start out with, if I got a ramp and I got a weight acting straight down, that angle there is theta. And I broke it up into perpendicular components, so that one of the components was this way, and one of the components was that way. What would this one be?
Which one?
Pardon?
Which one?
This one right here.
W sine theta.
Alright.
Okay, so sorry.
The other one. So if we did box on ramp, we have normal force going this way, weight going down, friction going back that way. So for box on ramp, done this quite a bit. And I made the claim that when we break weight up, that this is the same as friction going that way, normal force going this way, and then we break it up into W cosine theta, W sine theta. So I made the claim that this is the same as this, just that we can put this into equation form much more easily. The reason why it works that way is that if I add these two vectors together, I'm gonna get this one. If I add the two vectors together in the head to tail method, I draw one, then wherever that one ends, I draw the next one, and then I draw a vector from where I begin to where I end. That's basically the way you add vectors. So if I've got however many, I start with one of them, and I try to draw it the same magnitude, same direction. That's supposed to be this one. And then I take another one. Supposed to be same length, same direction. Don't go too far there. The whole thing. And then I do the next one. And then I do the next one. So each of these is supposed to correspond to each one of those. And my resultant is from where I begin to where I end. That yellow line is the resultant.
Huh. And so, like, would we, if not given, like, values on each of the lines, or I guess we don't need values on the line.
I've got a magnitude and I got a direction. That is a vector. It is the sum. It is the resultant.
Okay.
And that's how you add vectors graphically. I imagine the joy you're feeling inside is just not expressing itself, and that's why you're gloomy faces.
Well, tell you I did it wrong. Ooh, boy.
Yeah, it's just one part of many, so. Now, if I said that this was, if that was a 3 Newton force, you could estimate the length of, you could estimate what this would represent by, well, if that length right there represents 3 Newtons, oh, that's roughly twice the size, so that's roughly 6 Newtons. And the direction, that's 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, so it's shy of 270, so it's roughly 6 Newtons.
240.
Possibly, I wouldn't pick off of that, but I probably would. Because that's 240, that would be a 30-degree angle, and that doesn't quite look like 30 degrees. Anyway, this was not part of your test, approximately. I don't think, yeah, I took this, it was part of it, and I think I removed that part of the test. Just don't tell Ali. All right, so that's done. They'll be back. I'll have them for you on Tuesday. And, you know, it's a mixed bag like it usually is.
So for test corrections, if you get a B minus, can you still do test corrections?
Yeah, the way I do test corrections. So let's talk about that. All right, so original grade. Best possible after corrections. So if you got an A on the original test, in other words, a 4.0, you could bring it up to an A+, which goes in the grade book as a 4.0. If you failed it, 0.0, then you could bring it up to a C, which is a 2.0. So it's a sliding scale there. That sets up the parameters. So original grade, best final. So in the original, if the original is a 0, it could 4. And then the 4 could be brought up to a 4.3, which would be out there. So now it's just a matter of, well, a C would be halfway in between it, so a C would actually be a 3.15. So if you had a C originally, it's halfway between those, you could bring it up to a 3.15, which technically is a B+, but if you got the best on it, that's what would show up in the grade book.
Okay. If you got a B, it would be a 3.
So that would be a, let's see, that's a 1.15, half that is 5.575, so 3.725.
Sure, A minus.
Which would be an A minus if you want to put a letter grade to it, however, whatever that is. That, I mean, that's what would show up in the grade book if you got the best possible. Now, how do I come up with what your final grade actually will be, assuming you do test corrections? Let's say that there are 120 points, raw score points. And just to make the math easy, I'm gonna assume that you missed no, let's make the math easier. No, I don't wanna repeat that part. You missed 50 points, and the grade was a C. I don't know what it's gonna be, but let's just pretend. Which means So you got 70 out of 120. If you miss 50 points, that you're trying to demonstrate to me that you understand how to do these problems. So just writing down an answer gets you nothing. This is all about trying to convince me that you understand. If I see two people who are both working on a problem and they provide me with identical responses, it doesn't really convince me that both of you understand what's going on. And so probably no credit. So I don't mind working with if you work with other people. I want you to present it. Again, you're trying to convince me you understand. So I'm great going through it. You convinced me that you understand some of it, not other parts of it. So let's say that you convinced me that you understand 30 out of the 50 points. So out of the possible 50 that you had missed, you convinced me that you now understand 60% of it. I multiply that times what you could have gotten. So you could have raised your grade 1.15 from a 2 to a 3.15. That gets you something, and I add that to what your original score was. That's how we do it. It'd probably be B minus, if you needed a letter grade.
So 30 divided by 50 is 0.6
Yeah.
times 1.15 equals 0.69.
So that's what the grade would be.
Oh, okay, and then if you got all 50, then it didn't go up to a,
The 3.15.
3.15.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's like a C plus, or,
No, that's a B minus there.
that's a B.
So 3.5 to 4.3 is the A range, and then 2.5 B, 1.5 C. So if your final average is 3.5, you're getting an A in the class. If your final average is 3.49, yeah, probably gonna be an A. If your final average is a 3.4, and the only thing I've ever heard you say is, I need an A, what's my grade? Probably not gonna get the A. I think that's in one of the orientation videos. Anyway. So if it appears that I'm jokingly saying, hey, you don't get credit for that, except in here, that's where that plays. So it might seem like a sarcastic response, but it does have an impact.
Okay. And if I could make a request that the next test, when do you, like, what's the next test gonna be on, 4 to 6?
Yes, 4 to 6.
And, okay, if it could be like, as soon as we're done with the content, like that next class period, we have the test.
I have no problem with that. We could finish on Tuesday, test on Wednesday. Sure. That sounds,
Any objections?
Oh, the class objects, so let's put it like a day.
we'll negotiate it when we get
We'll
there.
negotiate it. And I like just close to whenever we finish the content.
Yeah, and I might have mentioned this, and apologies for repeating the story, but there was one semester where we finished the material for the second test before we had taken the first test. The 252 class, just for the trivia of it. So later on, when historians are writing my biography, you can share that tidbit. Because there aren't enough biographies of George Fox as it is. Any other questions before we start actually on forces again?